Milo says, what's the difference between a therapeutic session where the teacher therapist triggers your fears, wounds, and what are the benefits of what that happens? If the teacher or therapist is good, is competent, and they have created a safe space, then it is a safe place for these triggers and traumas and deep stuff to come up, and they can come up because it is safe, right? The benefit of that is that when they come up, they dissolve because they're coming up in a safe environment. Remember, what created these things, these wounds and these fears, these traumas, was the environment wasn't safe. And what holds them in place is the assumption that the environment still isn't safe. And when we do work on ourselves, oftentimes, unfortunately, without intending it, self-help and most spirituality reinforces the dangerous space, because it's always trying to fix you, change you, make you different, which is exactly the environment, right, that happened in the first place. It wasn't your parents were brutally abusive. In some cases they were, but they were all restrictive, right? And so it wasn't safe to be yourself. So you had to be fixed and changed in some way, right? And this becomes a lifelong habit. Now, if the therapist or teacher is practicing inner reconciliation, and there's a few therapists here today listening that do this, you're creating a safe space. And in that safe space, the fears and wounds can come to the surface and detect they are now in a safe space. And remember, the nervous system is completely adaptive. So if it detects safety in the environment, it will first test to see if it's consistent. And if it is, it will begin to release the defensive behaviors that we regard as the fears, the wounds, all that inner stuff. In the process of doing that, the teacher may intentionally trigger one of those to come up. I will do that. You don't always need to. Sometimes they'll come up all by themselves, but oftentimes I will do that, but within the context of a safe environment. Because if that fear, that thing gets triggered and it comes up, but the environment is different than what it's expecting, because what it's expecting is danger because it wants to be defensive, and all of a sudden it comes up and it's in the environment of safety, it begins to go, immediately you can feel this, a shift in the energy take place. So in that context, doing that kind of intentional triggering is extremely effective and useful. If it's done without that, and it was for a long time, I did ab reactions and cathartic events and trauma release that was more traumatic than the trauma in the first place, right? Because they weren't creating that safe space. They were forcing something to happen. The same is true for a lot of people who have had the Kundalini experience. Right? They weren't prepared for it. The environment wasn't safe. It wasn't open. You're supposed to practice for 10, 20 years before that, right? Because so the entire nervous system is ready for that influx of energy, right? So when the environment is created in such a way that it is safe to do so, then a triggering can be initiated if need be by a competent therapist or facilitator of some sort. It may be a trained therapist. It may be a spiritual guy like me. But when it is done in the right environment, what happens is the nervous system finds itself in an environment it wasn't expecting. But because the environment is safe and not dangerous, it doesn't immediately recoil. It goes, oh, this is different. It's why I use EFT, because EFT communicates safety through touch. So even in the middle of a tumultuous traumatic event coming up, there's something in the environment that's contradicting it, saying it's safe. This nervous system senses that. It senses everything. It misses nothing. This misses everything. The rest misses absolutely nothing. even a tiny shift in the sense of safety is detected and responded to. And so hopefully that answers your question, Mila.